welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm Clay Link here with Todd Zola of RotoWire and Masters Ball. Great to be back with you. It's part of the regular rotation with the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Todd, back on Fridays. You can join us live if you get a chance. Otherwise, the podcast will be on its normal channels immediately afterward. We've been doing our thing over on MLB Network Radio for months now, Todd, but great to be back doing the pod with you.
Yeah, great to hear that music, and I don't want to save the RotoWire saved the best for last. They certainly didn't save the best looking for last, but no, it's great to be back here. And
I think the best is first, maybe.
We'll have to struggle. They've crushed all week long. Well, James has crushed all season long.
Yeah, James has crushed all off season. And this pod with Rob Silver yesterday.
Right. And of course, you mentioned Jeff and Scott. You and Clay you are Clay. So you and James are the prospect. Everybody's back. Yeah, we got a lot to live up to here. So let's see. Without two start pitchers, I hope we don't just hope there's not radio silence.
Yeah, we'll have to figure something to talk about. I think we'll figure it out, but it is kind of this weird time where it seems like every time the players and the owners meet, there's like one step forward, two steps back. And I know Rob and James were saying on the show yesterday, just for your own sanity, a little bit of escapism, you got to just pretend like things are going to be normal. But as things progress, I'm thinking more and more that we're not going to have a full year. I hate to start this Friday show on a downer, Todd. But
I'm still thinking full year, but shortened spring training.
Okay.
So I mean, it's all speculation, but that's my hope, and I selfishly hope that that's the case because I get paid per game. But that's my problem, not yours, as it were. And we'll see. I mean, the news about the arbitrator and this, that, and it's everybody with their own opinion to fit their own agenda. It just makes too much sense to get it done. Just what I don't like. And I know what do I know? But instead of getting an offer, going back to the constituents and then talk about, figure out what your high and low, talk to your constituents, decide what you want, and then decide what the worst case scenario is, and then negotiate that issue. And if you have to combine issues, like we'll give you this, but if you give us that, okay, combine them. But enough of this. I mean, it's like going on the site mechanism to make a trade. I send you an offer. We didn't talk about it. I just sent you an offer. Then you didn't like it. You countered with another offer. We didn't talk about the guys that we like or dislike. You just sent me. Talk about the guys we'd like and dislike and get a trade done. That's all they need to do. It's easier said than done.
Yeah, well, my thinking on the start of the season kind of was going to lead into my first topic. I did want to first, though, mention that we are sponsored by WinBet. I don't know if I said that at the top of the show.
Nope, not
so
yet.
I want to at least get that in. But yeah, my first topic was Ronald Acuna, because as we kind of rewind back after, we've talked a lot on MLB Network Radio, but as we kind of start back at square one on this podcast, thought we'd kind of start at the top of the player pool, talk about some general observations and the ways we're attacking our early drafts. But I did a mock the other night with CBS, that crew, Scott White, Frank Stampfel in the bunch. Tim McLeod was in it. He took Ronald Acuna at 9. And again, I'll reference the pod that James and Rob Silver did yesterday. Rob said that every day that the season is potentially delayed, Ronald Acuna's stock goes up. And I haven't had him in the first round, but Tim McLeod took him 9th in this draft I did last night. And the more I'm thinking about it, Todd, I think I should bump Acuna up into the first round, not to buy into those BP videos. But if my thinking is that the season may be shortened, Acuna, I think, vaults back into that conversation.
Right. If that's the reason, and that's fine, because you need to go with how you feel in that regard. I'm not looking at the video. I love how people are jumping Acuna up and jumping,
based on BP.
Yeah, and Sixto Sanchez, they're eliminating him from their, because he threw, kind of limply through a throwing session. We really don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's not that the Acuna, I mean, it's promising. I'd rather see him doing that than nothing. But I need to see. And the thing with Acuna for me is still, is he going to run? Not can he run, but will the team let him? Will he want to? And he needs those bags to warrant. You said 9. I've seen him early as 7. His bat, I mean, when you hit 270, you can hit 290, you can hit 300, you can also hit 240. So his baseline's around 270, 275. You need the bags to be a first rounder with that batting average, or at least that expectation. So, not that he's incapable, but Milwaukee, I'm sorry. Will Atlanta just say, you're too darn valuable, we don't want you running as much? I don't know.
That's a possibility. I mean, they won the World Series without him, so obviously they don't want to put themselves in that spot again. So it's been a big part of his game. I know he's said that he wants to be a 50-50 guy.
Yeah, well,
the intent has been there in the past, but such a major injury could, bring different things into focus and shift that thinking a little bit.
Yeah.
But as we rewind, the conversation back to just general thoughts on the player pool, how things have broken down, early trends, the drafts you've done, any widespread takeaways that you want to share with us?
Sure. I've actually done a couple 12-team leagues, just the way it's worked out. And first of all, it's a weak spot of mine, and I don't like doing the RotoWire online championship and just getting crushed by people in it, especially when RotoWire puts the Todd Zola name on it. So I wanted a little more practice in the 12-team leagues. So I've done a couple of those. And I've also done some 15s because we get TGFBI coming up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Man, the player pools are different. You can make mistakes. I don't say make mistakes, but you can, punt, not so much punt, but you can wait on this and wait on that. And you can find it in the 12-teamers. 15-teamers, you're pretty much, you're hoping that you draft Devin Williams in the 22nd and the hater gets traded. So stuff like that. Whereas in the 12-team, it's just that's the sweet spot of the difference in player pools, where you can take a second baseman in the 19th and end up with a good second baseman. We can't do that in the 15s. It's just such a difference in player pools.
That's very true. I saw that again last night doing a 15-team. It's the bench spots and even the final active spots are pretty hairy.
Yeah, I'm doing a 15-team league. I tweeted about this last night too. I think it was like the 16th round. I'm like, wow, there's some good hitters left. And when that's the case, and no one stands out, I usually I'll take my catcher. So I took a catcher. Then in the 17th round, I'm like, where'd all the good hitters go? So that was kind of the drop. That was
the hitting inventory drives up in a hurry, and same on the pitching side.
Yeah, I wish pitching I'm a little bit more okay with. And one thing this year that I think is gonna personally help me, as far as the way I approach these drafts, I usually get stuck on a handful of pitchers in a 15-team league that I know these are the guys going to break out, but they shouldn't be drafted in 12-team leagues, but I draft them anyway. This year, the guys that I like, the guys I feel that way about should be drafted in 12-team leagues. So I'm not going to get caught. I'm not going to, try to get too cute in the 12s. The pitchers do overlap a bit. So that's a good thing. Third base, I wrote about this on the site for those subscribers or those that want to check it out, rotowire.com/free. I did a player pool analysis. Third base. Wow. It's weak in quality and quantity. And I don't think you need to push up a guy to get one. I don't think you need to. I think at some point there will be somebody at that draft spot worthy of it, especially because as you get further in the draft, the delta between players is nothing. So you can push a guy up 10 or 12 spots, and he's the same as the guy at the top of the list. I'm not pushing up Manny Machado or Rafael Devers to get a third baseman, but sure, Ty goes to the third baseman. It's not nearly as strong. There's not as many multiple eligibility players at the position, and it's just not a whole lot of players there.
Yeah, third base has gotten real thin in a hurry. It used to be one of the more fruitful positions in fantasy baseball, but it's a tough one to navigate. Yeah, if you don't get Jose Ramirez in the first, you got to have a plan to attack that one. Meanwhile, shortstop went from one of the thinnest positions in baseball 10 years ago to now one of the richest, obviously, and the closer inflation we're seeing early on. Now, granted, the draft champions ADP is what you're mostly going to be seeing when you visit the NFBC ADP. Play NFFC. I'm sorry, play NFBC.com/ADP to check it out for yourself. So you have to keep that in mind that these leagues that are drafting, a lot of them, they have no in-season pickups. So a lot of people want to secure those saves early. But as we've talked about, Todd, that as we get closer to the start of the season, we in theory have more knowledge about security and roles where guys stand. Even when that happens, I still don't see the inflation dropping on and the prices on these closers dropping.
Everybody thinks it's going to drop in the main event because there's fab pickups. They don't. That's just not how it works. Closers continue to be inflated in the NFBC main event. I'm one of the few on the other end of the argument that I'm not so much buying in. I'm not getting sucked into paying the premium for the top closers. Get a little bit, mathy nerdy for you. And on the first pod back, there's an expected earnings, right? The dollar value calculator on the site, whoever you want to use, you can get an anticipated earnings for the closers. And then what you can do is you can take their ADP and you can look at historically what that draft spot earns, right? Based upon previous years and final numbers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'll cut out the middleman. This is Julia Childs, and the bread's already baked. I ran the numbers. You're over, air quote, overpaying $5 to $7 for a closer, be it at the top or be it in the middle to the end. That it's somewhere between $5 and $7 that you're overpaying. So now the decision is: do you want to overpay at the top? Do you want to overpay at the in the middle and bottom? You're gonna overpay for a closer relative to what they're air quote worth. Where do you decide to make that investment? Keeping in mind that some of that earnings is ratio and strikeouts. So the Haters and the Hendricks, it's not all saves. You're getting better ratios, more strikeouts, and it matters. You can get up to 5 more points if those guys do what they're expected to do versus the average closer. That's it, in strikeouts ratios, WHIP and ERA. You can get up to 5 more points as compared to an average closer. You can get even more compared to a below average closer. So that they matter. So you have to make your decision. Do you want to overpay at the top? I'm deciding to overpay on Joe Barlow and Andrew Kittredge and David Bednar and that range there, because I'm more comfortable doing that and then getting my starting pitcher or getting my bats in the 2nd to 5th round where these other guys are going. It's just what I'm doing, and I think it can be done. And I think what people are overlooking, and I've written about this, I talked about this on the site. You don't need all the saves that people are talking about. You only need about 50 to 60. So, they're not a lot there, but to compete in a DC, to compete in a draft championship, you only need 50 or 60 saves. I don't need to lock down 35 of them in the 2nd round.
Yeah, seeing some closers go in the 2nd has been startling a little bit. I've been taken aback. I know the great Phil Dussault, who had the greatest fantasy season ever, when he did his pod with James, said that some of the worst advice he's heard this draft season would be, I'm just completely out on paying for a top closer. And he made the point that it's all relative, and that is the case. And you're right that you're going to overpay at some stage. I'm with you though. I just can't overpay at the very top. That 2nd round, there's so many good players available. And it's right. For building a team, I think that's the wrong way to go about it personally for this year. But right. There are definitely different ways to go about baking the cake. I personally can't see myself paying at the very top. Even though, some drafts, Liam Hendricks is still there, but I think in the very, in the main events, the ultra competitive leagues, it's going to be tough. Jordan Romano was the guy I ended up in the 7th round of that draft I did last night. 15 teams, so I was pretty happy with Romano. Where do you fall on Romano? Because I know our guy Ryan Roof likes him a lot.
Well, yeah, I've got tiers in my top tiers: Hader and Hendricks and Hader, whatever order you want to put them in. I'm not going there. But then I've got I don't know, 7 or 8 pitchers where I think they have the job, and I think they're pretty solid. And Romano fits into that group. I know he's got some injury history, but I think with the conversion to reliever in full force, it's been a few years now, he may be one of those guys that loses the injury tab or injury label as he goes on. So to me, yeah, he's in a range where what's it, 7th, 8th round at this point, probably 5th or 6th, and I haven't paid attention. But he would be kind of the first guy that I would consider before I get to the guys that others aren't considering, right? I mean, he's kind of if he's in the 7th or 8th, yeah, I'll think about him.
I'm with you. Bednar, I do like. And then there's a guy who I took in the 27th round. So we went 29 rounds, 15 teams. 27th round, I took him. Then Tim McLeod said, I thought I could get him in the final round. Robert Suarez coming back. At the time in the chat, I said, you got to think he's got a chance to see the bulk of the saves there in San Diego. And Tim McLeod went a step further and said, I think he's the favorite after what he did overseas. Tim said he can come close to triple digits, which I didn't even realize.
Yep.
He's 30 years old. Again, most of his success overseas, but now coming back. What do you think? Is Suarez kind of a forgotten man right now in drafts?
I don't know if he's so much forgotten because he wasn't around. I think he's an unknown. And yes, no, I'm with Tim. Tim and I were in a draft together. We've done 2 drafts recently together, and we were commenting back and forth on Suarez. I think I got him in one, he got him in the other, but we knew each other wanted him, so we pushed him up a little bit. What is there? There's the other Louis Garcia, Drew Pomeranz, is Pagan still there? So there's definitely competition, but I think they signed. I think they signed Suarez with at least an opportunity to win the job, and they
let Melanson walk. I mean,
right, exactly, and that's a pretty prime job. So I mean, example you mentioned where you're getting your guys. So I'm doing a 15 team. I needed to put my money where my mouth is, so to speak. If I'm going to be out here saying I'm waiting on closers, I needed to test drive it. I needed to see what happens. So I'm doing the 15 team DC, and I ended up with the Barlow boys in the, I think, 10th and 11th rounds, something like that. I think 10th and 11th round. People, you've jumped Joe Barlow up a couple rounds. Why don't you jump up Liam Hendricks? I'm just more comfortable doing that. And I followed it up later on with Devin Williams, who our colleague and friend Derek Van Riper has been pushing as a possible closer because of the potential of a Josh Hader trade. And Williams you can use in this league anyway. So I'm fine with the Barlow boys and Williams, and obviously and I'll get some more speculative closers. I wanted Andrew Kittredge because I love him for this, because no one's drafted him because he's not going to get 35 saves. I only need 15 or 20, and he's going to pitch well. Someone scooped me on him, on Kittredge in this league. So I think it can be done. I like the rest of my team. I think it can be done. 12 team, it can definitely be done. We're waiting on closers. So we'll just have to see. But I got Louis Robert in the 2nd and Xander Bogaerts in the 3rd, as opposed to jumping up at closers. So I got my speed. I got some speed with Robert to pair with Kyle Tucker. So I've got the speed. So one of the things you're giving up is speed or a starting pitcher when you draft early. And I like my starting pitching. So we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. Well, before we move on, we have to take a quick break, throw to a word from our sponsors. And now we are back on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, sponsored by WynnBET. Clay Link here with Todd Zola, kind of resetting here on this Friday morning, touching on some general draft trends, early thoughts on the player pool, things we've noticed, how we're attacking things. And Todd, one thing you've mentioned is, a lot of guys having eligibility at second base and other positions as well. And with the depth at shortstop, maybe, moving a guy like Trey Turner, if you get him in the first, to second base, and then opening up some other opportunities. And that's actually what I did last night. moving Turner to second base, allowing me to get Frankie Lindor and then also Willie Adames. So it's just so fruitful in the middle infield. And I feel like this year more than ever, you probably need to be paying attention in draft and moving guys around on your roster.
Yeah, I'm looking at the team that I was kind of talking about. And with all the multiple eligibility players that are out there, I don't have any. You almost have to purposely plan that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't. I think one reason might be is because I think people are pushing them up a board, and I'm not. And I think other guys might be falling to me because they're putting a premium on the multiple eligibility guys. I did get Joey Wendell as my Anthony Rendon hedge, but that was like in the 17th or 18th or 19th round. But the examples I gave in the piece in the site was, imagine 10 years ago saying that Fernando Tatis Jr., the equivalent thereof, and Chris Bryant should be put in the outfield when you're drafting and not shortstop or third base as they, where they're also eligible. I would have been canceled. You guys would have fired me on the spot. ESPN would be looking for a new person to do projections. But now, to me, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The outfield is thin. And if you draft Tatis, and like you mentioned, picking up Lindor, if Bogarts or Lindor or another shortstop, wow, he's at the top of my board, but I've got Tatis. Well, move Tatis to the outfield. It's pretty simple. So who would have thought that 10 years ago? But I'm actually kind of nervous about this team now because I've got Nelson Cruz on it, and I don't have a lot of eligibility. So I'm gonna, when we're done and I reset my queue for the next picks, I'm going to try to get some multiple eligibility in the reserves, because when you got Cruz, that just blocks a spot even more. I hope that Bogarts and Jose Abreu and Gene Segura, some pretty steady players, don't get hurt, but hope a lot of things that don't occur.
Yeah, that's you go into the season hoping and praying, and inevitably you're going to be just half your team wiped out at certain points.
Yeah, that kind of folds into we're talking about the closers in draft championship. A good argument, to be honest, for taking a closer early is there's much. I mean, the people that win the draft championship, they're really good players. They destroy me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there's some attrition to it as well. So you can argue that in the draft championship, with the way it's so much about attrition, that you can afford to give up some stuff at the top, be it a pitcher or hitter, and just make it up by drafting healthy players, multiple eligibility players. So it's not, I mean, you can make up whatever you lose by taking Hendricks in the second. Yes, it is. It's a counter to my own argument. So I'm not going to say that's wrong. I think it is an argument for it. I'm still not taking, Clase in the third round.
Yeah, I know James likes Clase, and the stuff is great.
I like him, but I don't like him third round. I mean, I'm not paying the $5 premium on Clase, where I'll pay it. I paid it on Joe Barlow. I happen to think Scott Barlow is going to get the job, and I happen to think Joe Barlow may not start with the job with Texas, but to me, he's the most highly skilled of their relievers, so I'm good with it.
It's just so hard to figure things out. But getting back to Nelson Cruz for a second, you don't think the cliff is here? You think he's got one more decent year? Or was he just so cheap that you thought maybe?
Yeah. Well, how cheap was he? He was the, again, 15-team league, 8, 12, 14th round. So is that cheap? I don't know. I mean, relative to how he normally does. And I know he tailed off in Tampa. Once the word came out that it's almost definitive that there'll be a DH in the National League, I said, I mean, I'm not worried now that, he's going to find a job somewhere. And, I'm a little concerned that he didn't do well in Tampa. But Tampa is more than just a big park. The lighting, there's some other factors that make Tampa such a hard place to hit. It's not just the dimensions. So just have to believe that Cruz is going to pick a good spot for himself. And again, this is a league I want to win. It's a draft champions. I'm mixing it up with another league I'm doing. 12-team listener, friend Kevin Hastings asked me to be in the On the Wire 12-team listener league. So that I'm treating as much as it is for fun as I am, that's my test drive for the RotoWire Online Championship, which I hope to do in a couple months or a month or whatever it might be. But yeah, Cruz. What do you say? 14th round? Is he on your radar in the 14th and the 15th teamer? That's like pick 200, right? 200 to 210.
I was looking up when you were talking where he went in this draft I did last night. He went in the 10th round. That's too steep. 14th, maybe I'll be in, but I've ended up with like Franmil Reyes in most of my drafts so far.
There you go.
I just don't really see myself going after Cruz to fill that DH spot. Plus, I mean, some of the other names that are still available, then there's a lot of good players still there, and trying to fill my needs on the pitching side.
Yep.
I just don't see myself going that route because it did look like maybe Father Time had finally bit him.
Yeah, either Father Time or just Tampa Time, one or the other. We'll see. Maybe both.
Yeah, that's true.
Because he did well. He did well with Minnesota.
Yeah, he did. So I mean, that was not very long ago. The guy I've mentioned that I'm completely out on is Adelbert Mondesi. He went in the 8th round. Probably see him going higher in most drafts. Just don't see the playing time being there. Don't see him being a part-time guy because that's what they've kind of said. It leads into the bigger question of how you're attacking speed, though. Is Mondesi a fallback option for you if you have to make up ground there?
No, I'm not reading the same depth into the comments that you're reading into, which I don't think we actually know. I think part of what the comments is about being a part-time player are just talking about the fact he's so injured. I think when Mondesi's healthy, he will be playing. I think the question is how much he'll be healthy. But to me, especially because it's third base, and so you get steals from third. Well, if that's fine, but third base is so thin. I kind of want to do a little, not so much do better, but have a more stable player at the position, so I don't have to worry about finding a replacement who's going to be terrible. When Mondesi's hurt, who replaces him? So especially now, especially if you need to replace steals, there's no third baseman that's going to give you some steals. Mm-hmm. So it's more, and I don't know that he's going to get shortstop. I don't think he's going to. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, with Bobby Witt, et cetera, how they plan things. So he is not on my radar. And one of the reasons I jumped Louis Robert up a bit in this draft, but I felt pairing him with Tucker, I think I had the 11th pick, something like that. Pairing him with Tucker, I thought gave me 40 steals maybe off the bat, 15 and 25, something like that. I thought it gave me a pretty decent foundation so that sure, you need to fill in later, but I thought I didn't mind getting 40 steals for my first 2 picks.
Yeah, I think you want to prioritize speed in those first few rounds and spread it around your roster. Just getting a guy like Mondesi and banking on steals from that guy is just a poor way to go about building your roster, in my opinion, especially because if he does go down, and after you took him, you probably, put speed on the back burner of the rest of the draft. You're just, sinking yourself with a pick who, isn't doing enough else with the speed to really carry his weight.
Yes, I agree. I think it's more of the injury. If I'm in a league where I just don't have speed yet, I am not at all averse to taking Miles Straw. This year's Victor Robles, whatever, we go down that road. I think Straw is the way to balance out a Freddie Freeman, JD Martinez, Manny Machado type of start. I think Straw's going to play. I think he's going to get on base, and I think he's going to run. And I think those are fairly safe steals. Defensively,
we have one really detractor yesterday in Rob Silver and one supporter today in Todd Zola for Miles.
Well, Straw, I don't think is Rob detracting the production, or is he detracting the need to do that?
Well, he referenced Jeff Zimmerman and Tanner Bell's kind of like 650 OPS rule, or maybe a 750. Yeah, I think it's 750. Well, basically, if you're projected for 750 OPS or lower, you have about a 40% chance of losing your job, and it's just I guess he thinks that Miles Straw could very well. There's always the question of like, well, who can they plug in? But there's always somebody when you're really struggling.
Well, they've got Bradley Zimmer, they've got Oscar Mercado, so
Yeah,
they have the replacements. Maybe I just am a little more confident in Strauss holding the job. Now, I'm not planning a strategy around it, right? But all I'm saying is, I'm not. I mean, I'll go if I have to. If I'm forced to go down that road, I'll do it.
I hear you. I took Starling Marte in one of my drafts, but now I'm kind of leaning. He's just a tough player to roster given the speed strain he puts on the rest of your roster. But obviously the 7 that he stole last year is huge. Still know if he's going to be able to.
You're in your head. You're writing down 30, right? You're not writing down 47, right?
Yeah, not even 40 personally, but I just wanted to mention a few things. You mentioned TGFBI earlier. Some probably roll their eyes, but happy TGFBI League announcement day, by the way, Todd, for those who celebrate. Again, certain people have certain things to say about TGFBI, but I'm excited about it. It'll be fun. And also Dan Straley, news is pretty much non-existent right now,
right.
but Dan Straley coming back to the States, and with
Finally,
Arizona,
yeah,
you got to think maybe he gets a shot. Not somebody in traditional leagues, but maybe those draft and hold fiends who are on the clock like right this second in the 40th round or so. Maybe want to consider Dan Straley coming back. Got a quick pause real quick to bring a word from our sponsors here. Hope you'll bear with us and stick around for the rest of the show. If there's one thing we appreciate here at RotoWire, it's making good decisions and even more so making the right decision. Listen up, folks. I have an incredible offer for you with RotoWire's newest partner, WynnBET, the premier digital casino and sportsbook app. WynnBET is now the exclusive sponsor for RotoWire's fantasy podcasts. WynnBET brings you all the latest action with a user-friendly interface, moneyline bets, boosted parlays, over-unders, round robins, live betting, and so much more at your fingertips. Want a break from sports betting? Head into WynnBET's digital casino and take a spin on roulette, double down in blackjack, slam the slots, or try your hand at baccarat. WynnBET is currently available in 8 states, Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Nevada, or not Nevada, sorry. I said Nevada before, now Virginia, while rapidly expanding.
Hopefully Nevada soon.
Yeah, Nevada soon. Hopefully. At WynnBET, the possibilities are limitless. WynnBET is currently offering all RotoWire listeners a risk-free bet up to $500 on your first wager. Download WynnBET now. That's WYNNBET. WynnBET, the exclusive partner for RotoWire's fantasy podcasts. Also, experience a new way to play daily fantasy sports on Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy is an exciting player prop fantasy contest. With Thrive Fantasy, you can eliminate the countless hours of research and focus on only the top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Sign up for Thrive Fantasy today and receive a free 6-month RotoWire subscription. Here's how you can claim your free RotoWire subscription. Visit rotowire.com/thrive. Deposit a minimum of $10 and receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Play in your first paid contest and receive a free 6-month RotoWire sub. So, Todd, as we wrap things up today, I wanted to talk a little bit more about closers because we're going to have Ryan Roof on our show tomorrow on MLB Network Radio. He handles our closer grid over at RotoWire. He also has a new article up at the site, rotowire.com/try for a 10-day trial on us. Closer Encounters is the name of his article. I like that, especially as a fan of the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I smell an Erickson tie-in.
He might have had something to do with it. I don't know exactly, but yeah, Ryan's done a great job in his Closer Encounters article. He really goes deep on the position. I think he went like 60 deep at relief pitcher, and we'll talk with him about closers and waiting. Now, I just want to say I took Lucas Sims in one of my early drafts. Now I'm kind of pivoting away and going more towards Luis Sessa in Cincinnati, just because he's the cheaper of the two options. Are you just staying away completely because they've kind of gone the Tampa Bay route when it comes to bullpen usage?
You know what? I need to do more research on that scenario. I just profiled Sessa the other day. and I wasn't all that impressed. I mean, okay, but the strikeouts just aren't there.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I don't think the Reds, are the Reds a candidate to sign Ian Kennedy, for instance? I'm not going to put it past them if they get him at the right price, and then flip him at the deadline, put $1 in a tip jar for flip him at the deadline. But I'm not as comfortable with that scenario. The difference between the Reds and the Rays, sorry for those Reds fans out there, but the Rays are doing it with good pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
The Reds, I think that I don't know if it's on a necessity, but the guys are hurt or they're underperforming. The Sims and the players that they're using in the committee. So it's not a place I'm looking. They should offer up some decent opportunities though, because my research shows that saves dovetail wins and they dovetail starter ERA, and I like their starters. So they should offer up some opportunities.
Yeah, I like their starters more now. Since they abandoned that Suarez at short thing last year, and guys like Luis Castillo and Tyler Mahle went on to have pretty good runs after that. It was just kind of a joke that they were, they just were putting those guys at a disadvantage by having Suarez at short. It was really tough. Yeah, that is kind of a situation where it did seem at times last year like David Bell kind of wanted to have that one option. At one time, he wanted TJ Antone, it seemed like. Amir Garrett, Sims. It did seem like maybe the distribution of saves across the roster was more about just one guy not really taking the job and running with it, more so than David Bell's preference to spread things.
And wasn't he a little itchy with the finger there? That, I mean, you're going to give up a home run, right? You're going to give up but he.
Yeah. As soon as Garrett was horrible though early on.
Well, that's true. I mean, it seemed to be the first time a guy faltered, he's moving on to the next guy, where he didn't give him a chance to let him iron it out and get going. But you're right, though. It was pretty bad at the beginning.
And I heard Jeff Erickson references. I actually, when he asked, I think maybe he asked Chris Liss or whoever he was hosting with, like who the Reds leaders and saves were. And I watched every game last year, and I actually got I got one half of the question wrong. The Reds leaders and saves weren't, Amir Garrett and Lucas Sims. It was Heath Hembury. That was the one half of the question I got wrong. And though I later remembered it, and Michael Givens. So it is really hard to project.
I would have guessed Hembury. I forgot about Givens.
Nice. Well, looking at Ryan Roof's personal closer board here, he has Edwin Diaz third behind Liam Hendricks, Josh Hader, and Raisel Iglesias. Again, we'll get more of his thoughts on MLB Network Radio tomorrow if you can join us. But Diaz at fourth seems a little too high for my taste. I just, he's been a pretty good closer throughout his career, but it seems like the Mets are always looking to either give him a break from the role or upgrade or something. So I just, for some reason,
new management, right? There's new manager in town. So you'd like, if he pitches the way he's supposed to, or the way he can, you'd like to think that Showalter will just leave him there. But we'll see. But that's, I mean, I have that same kind of like, Willie's thinking about it, because he's also been inconsistent himself. So, I mean, I put him in, I do, I put him in, tiers or whatever. Presley, Iglesias, Class A, Diaz, to me, and maybe Aroldis Chapman are kind of in that tier. Probably Jansen and Will Smith and Romano. But yeah, I mean, anywhere between third and sixth, and yeah, I think that's fine for Diaz.
Ryan Roof has Jordan Romano fifth. Again, you can see these for yourself. No credit card required. To check out the free 10-day sub, rotowire.com/try. Aroldis Chapman sixth, Clase seventh, Presley eighth, Will Smith 9, Kenley 10, and then Blake Trinan. You touching him? That's another one where I don't trust it. I see them either bringing Jansen back or bringing somebody else in.
I'm touching him at the right price. He's a guy that I'm happy to use in a draft championship anyway. So I'm not averse to Trinan, but I think he's going a little bit earlier than I'm willing to take when he doesn't have the job, right? So I'm It's interesting. Did you say that Ryan's got Jansen in that other tier?
He's got Jansen 10th.
Yeah. So if he's got Treinen similar, he must be under the impression, or in his mind, Jansen's going elsewhere.
Yeah. There have been some rumors in recent days. Angels linked to Jansen. Maybe the
I don't know if it was that a rumor or
that was
that
maybe
a
just
what if?
speculation.
Yeah, that was a speculation.
I did see that floating around.
Yeah.
Don't know how
I
much
don't see
legs.
I don't see that. To me, the other one is Kimbrel. Is will the White Sox trade Craig Kimbrel?
Mhm.
And they brought in Kendall Graveman, so they're set up to deal with him, to deal him. And where does he go? And then how about you talking about the Reds and I'm mixed up? What about the Cardinals? Where does Ryan have? I can look. I'm kind of just leading in, so you can say it out loud. Where does Ryan have Gallegos?
Right behind Treinen, so 12th. So sandwiched between Treinen and Kimbrel. Again, go back and listen to yesterday's pod if you get a chance. But Rob Silver said he's not touching Gallegos, and it does seem like a situation where everybody thinks it's Gallegos. Then on opening day, somebody else trotting out of the bullpen for the ninth.
The thing about it to me is Gallegos is really good. And I don't know why it's. I'm kind of with Rob. It's just why I don't have him in the solid with job tier. I've got him in the tier. If he has a job, I'm all over him because he's really good. But Hicks and Reyes and who knows what else St. Louis does. So that's I don't mind Gallegos if the room is shy because they don't. I'll take him because I'll use him if he's not closing.
Yeah, if Rob Silver's comments drive the price down, maybe I'll get back in on Gallegos, but I'm a little worried. I wanted to ask you who you got closing to start the season for your Red Sox. That may be a different answer than who leads the team in saves in 2022, but who do you got kicking things off as the Red Sox closer?
I have Barnes, but I'm ask me my percent confidence level. It's not very. It's just they paid him. The reasons are, and they're not that great. They paid him last year before stuff happened, and I think he will recover and become a good pitcher again. So I think he's in the mix. Whether he gets it or not, who's to say? Because there's still, we're talking with the Red Sox bringing in Michael Wacha, bringing in Rich Hill. It's still up in the air what Garrett Whitlock and Tanner Houck do. And I don't know that Houck would be put into the closer role, but it wouldn't be shocking if Whitlock would. It'd be surprising because he can go multiple innings and you can tandem Houck and Whitlock with Wacha, with Hill. Although Hill's Hill's a 5-6 inning guy. That's all. He's not going to be more than that, but he's not like a 3 or 4 inning guy and get him out of there. He gives you 5 or 6. Wacha could be the 3 or 4, and you want to piggyback Houck or something. So so I don't know, and I think it's it's obviously going to be important, but my projections probably have Barnes leading the team, but I'm not drafting him.
I didn't plan on drafting Barnes either, but in this draft I did last night, he went all the way. He went 22nd round. I could see taking the chance because they paid him. Things went south and they didn't turn back to him to close after the walks and homers spiked, but he was an all-star closer in the first half. And I think they'll at least try to get him back in a high leverage role. Maybe it'll be the 8th, but I do think they'll want to recoup some value on that deal and try to build him back up, build his confidence back up.
Yeah. Lost in all the lockout and everything else that's going on was MLB was planning on introducing a ball that was, already more tacky. And that was the issue with Barnes, was spin. And I think I did some work, and I don't know that it affected him as much as intuitively it did, but even so, it could, mess you up in the head. So, that's kind of lost in all this is what ball are they going to use? Not only when are they going to play, but what's the ball going to be like? So
we didn't even mention the DH shit today.
That is correct. We haven't. And
looks like we're going to have that, which is huge for us.
Yep, which is good. At least we know something, which I've been doing 2 sets of pitching projections. I'm going to jettison my no DH and an NL projections. It's going to cut my work down by a little bit, which is good. Matter of fact, next week on the site, I was going to do it this week, but my piece this week has just taken on a new life. And I'm looking at spin rates and what happened. I've got some data. It's like it's cooler than it is helpful for fantasy, but I'm going to post it anyway. It'll be up tomorrow, I hope, over the weekend. But my next week is going to be how to think about things without the NLDH, how numbers will adjust, what we have to do in our own minds to adjust pitching rankings, etc., based upon the fact there'll be no DH.
As we wind down here, I do want to just plug Jason Collette's Bold Prediction series, which has been running on the site. Great stuff there. You know who he has leading the Cubs in saves? Did you see that?
No, I have not.
Cody Hoyer.
Well, he's the guy I've been saying.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, they got him, and I liked him. I liked the possibility down the stretch. I think he maybe did get a few save chances down the stretch.
The strikeouts fell off the table with the Cubs, but I mean, it's just a sample thing. I think the strikeouts will be back. And I do like that. I do like that call. I made a list for us to look at. I meant to put Hoyer on my favorite speculative plays, and that he belongs there.
By the way, Jeff Zimmerman's going to have an article coming to the site this weekend looking at some of the unicorns in baseball. That'll be great. Also, James's top 400 update. If you're listening to this, you've probably dove deep. I don't think divin's a word. Probably already dove deep into that top 400, but I just want to plug some of the great stuff we have on the site. Of course, this offseason, Todd, we did discontinue the magazine, but all that great content is still up on the site. We're still producing all that, and definitely give our draft kit a shot if you are willing to give us a 10-day shot. And then if you decide at that point that you want to commit and sign up for the site, you can. But at the 10 days when those run out, we will not automatically charge you because we do not have that information. Anything else you want to get to on this show, Todd?
Well, we're you can actually see us, right? So just want to say they Roadway made them with enough X's to get me one. So Emily, you got this.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, thinking about Emily Walden and wishing her the best in her battle. Yeah, again, join us tomorrow if you can for MLB Network Radio. We'll have Ryan Roof on the show. Otherwise, we'll be back every Friday. And you know that Scott and Jeff will be back at their normal spot. I don't know if they're doing it Sunday night or Monday morning. Usually they do Sunday night. So
I think it depends upon if one of the two of them has a football game to watch. At this point, it's only down to one of the two.
Jeff's not used to having a game to watch at this point, but he finally does. Well, thanks so much for the insight, Todd. Hope you'll join us the rest of the season. We'll be talking fantasy baseball here on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, sponsored by WinBet.